Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy. We got Matt on the call once again as camp is underway. But before we get to his in high tempo, just want to say rest in peace to Darryl Drake. Steelers wide receiver coach passed away suddenly before the start of the season. So you hate to lose anyone like that, especially someone that's relatively young. I think he was 62.
Yeah.
Let's fact check that. Yeah, 62. And I mean, there are a lot of coaches even in their 70s. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And just wanted to make sure we didn't forget it. So I hate to start the show on a low note, but definitely prayers and support go out to his family. But let's get into our camp stuff, Matt. You had high tempo. You're at camp underway. You want to give us an update on how that's going?
Absolutely. We got 2 days underway here for the Bulldogs. We survived the swamp and picture day, so it's just checking some boxes on the stuff that we needed to get done. Had an offensive practice in the morning. Things went pretty well. Defensive at practice in the evening. Definitely going to get to grind some film after the show tonight, see what we got to work on for tomorrow. We got some double teams and different stuff that we're really putting an emphasis on, and hopefully we're going to see some production out of that come Saturday when we get to hit somebody else and get the face of the shade for our first scrimmage.
Very cool. I know we were talking about the age of your players, but you actually had some extra linemen come into the fold. How do you think that compares to recruiting, just getting high schoolers to actually come out for the team compared to recruiting for college?
I would say that it's similar. I mean, with high school, it's a lot different because you're looking at you only have so many kids, and unless you're illegally paying for kids to come to your school, you got to deal with the students that are there. And one of the points of emphasis that we had was that there were a lot of athletes that were walking the halls, and we put an emphasis on trying to get some of those guys that maybe weren't playing or weren't interested in the past to try to reach out to them and build the program a little bit more. And I'm definitely excited about some of the prospects that we have, and definitely I see an improvement on our offensive line because of that.
And when's your first game? It has to be
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, that's what I thought. Are you guys having any scrimmages beforehand?
Yep, we scrimmaged Saturday morning. So, I mean, there's a fast turnaround. In years past in Pennsylvania, you had 2 scrimmages, but now the way that they have it set up is that the first week of the season, they call it technically week 0, that for people that want to play either extra people that are in the conference, or if you want to have an out of conference matchup, you can try to schedule something else, and it doesn't hurt your overall standings and record.
Now, I've been on the record against preseason football because college doesn't need it. Do you feel that high school could get away totally with not having it, or do you like having that game?
I like having it. I like having it because there's some position battles that you can kind of simulate it at practice, but until you get that game film, it's a completely different situation. And even for some kids that are kind of on the bubble, when you put that film on and you have the high angle that you can say, look, this is why this person's starting, this is why you're not, and it's very visible. I feel like the lights and the camera always shine brighter under the stadium lights. So I do think that it definitely helps us because now you have film of hitting somebody else, and you really are getting a good look that now you see what you have to get ready for the following week.
All right, yeah, thanks for the update. Definitely we're going to be checking back in with you. Good luck on Saturday. I'm going to get into the first topic, and I know this is something that you wanted to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. DirecTV on, when does Steelers play? Is that like Friday?
Yeah.
You went to watch the game, and they weren't carrying the NFL Network. How did that make you feel? Uh-oh, you might be dropping out a bit. We'll give it one more second. I can go ahead and read the actual statement from DirecTV that he received.
Well, I'm not losing, but I'm dropping.
Yeah, he's cutting in and out again. So Yeah, give me a second until your connection gets a little bit better. The message he received that says, Nexstar, the owner of this station, has removed it from your lineup, despite our request to keep it available to you. Please know that we are working with Nexstar behind the scenes to feature or to bring the station back as quickly as possible. We share your frustration and regret any inconvenience. And then it gives you a URL to go to. Please visit tvpromise.com for more information and alternative viewing options, which I will say is just a load of bullshit. They don't care if it's in your lineup. Basically what happened is it looks like Nexstar owns the NFL Network, and I've never heard of them. But each network, they give a price to your TV provider. ESPN and Live Sports are notoriously more expensive than other TV channels. So if you're paying for your cable, if you look at the breakdown, ESPN might cost you $6, $9 a month, something like that, in between something similar, but almost $10. And that you might think, okay, that's more than Hulu costs. And then your other channels go down from there. ESPN2 is a couple bucks, and most of them are $1 or $2. So when you pay for your $30, some networks only get 30 cents a month from your bill. But most likely, they're trying to increase the price of the NFL Network, and DirecTV said, no, we're not passing that along to our customers. Or if they can't get more customers, because DirecTV has been losing people left and right, they're not going to be able to increase their rates when they're already losing people to PlayStation Vue and YouTube TV and stuff. So what happens is you get this message whenever you sign in, and as a consumer, you're screwed. Which is why I would love to see more of a streaming platform for all sports, where if the NFL wants you to pay whatever they want, because they're giving DirecTV the number. It might be $5, whatever it is. It's probably something weird like $4.13. If they would just go ahead and offer that for $5 a month, I would most likely sign up. If you get NFL Red Zone, it would be worth it to me. But I'm guaranteeing that they're offering some type of stalemate, and I guess it might even be resolved by now. But this happens every year, and I hate to see it.
Well, here's the other part to that. The thing that had me agitated in the whole situation was that I get home from our heat acclimation practice, and I go to see that the game's on, so I'd missed the start, went to turn it on, and I got that message. So I was like, okay, let's see if it's on another channel. Go on to NFL Network, and it was on NFL Network. But when I go to click on that channel, it redirects me back to the CBS local broadcast that wasn't covered by DirecTV. It was complete bullshit. That it was offered on another channel. I can see if you're having the issue, you are still able to broadcast it. That was just a blackout on their part. So don't give me the sob story that you're trying to work with your partner. Air it on the other side. That's the thing that had me agitated, is that it was there on another channel. I said, oh no, it's blacked out. You got to put it on this other channel. No, get it going. You're paying for an upgraded package. Put it on there.
You're probably going to hate me to say this, but do you have an antenna that you get your local channels on?
No.
That's what you need. It was probably free.
I have the dish.
Oh, that's true. That's the one thing that annoys me. If you look at the TV packages that YouTube TV offers, whenever I did mine, I did a test on YouTube TV and PlayStation Vue. And for whatever reason, if I try to if my computer asks for my location, wherever Time Warner has their server set up, it's in Dallas. So they think that I'm in Dallas for these services. So if I was going to get a local channel, I would get all the Cowboys games. Not that I'm a fan of the Carolina Panthers, but anyone else in this region, you would think that they would want Carolina Panthers or another local team down here. But instead, we were getting Dallas Stars games and all kind of other stuff on my trial. I was like, why am I getting this? And they said, that's the local channel for your router. And it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, it's 2019. Get your shit together. You know where I'm located. It says every time I get an email like, hey, did you sign in from Raleigh, North Carolina? Yeah. Why does my TV provider think that I would be in Dallas? It doesn't make any sense. And that was like a year ago, and I was only reminded of that because when I went to watch the Steelers, I got a little message. It was like, hey, you're watching in Dallas. And I'm like, I'm not. I don't know why you guys think I'm in Dallas, but I'm not in Dallas. It makes zero sense.
And I looked at it in the past when I was living in North Carolina that, yeah, it made sense to buy the Sunday ticket and have access to all of it, all the games. But it's like when I'm living in the local Pittsburgh area, I should have access to it. And especially when I'm not paying for a basic package, I would expect that the channel should be there. And as far as the streaming aspect, yeah, there's stuff out there, but I also don't want to. There's so many questionable streaming platforms too out there that I don't want to end up blowing my computer up trying to find a secondhand streaming service to watch the damn Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, very good, Matt. Do everything legal. That's definitely illegal. We're not. Don't be a pirate. That's really bad news. Haven't you ever heard that in the newspapers? Anything could happen. Yeah, Mike Leach.
That's right.
Hey, speaking of, because I know I'm going to forget to bring it up in our college football segment, did you see that they are doing HBO Hard Knocks with Mike Leach?
No.
They have 4 college programs, and I know I'm going to forget probably 2 of them, but I know Washington State with Mike Leach was one, and Penn State was one of the other 2, which stuck out in my mind because of all the programs. I think Alabama was one, so I'm just missing the 4th one. So Alabama's most likely doing it for recruiting purposes. I would imagine Penn State is doing it for the same reason. Because Michigan did that, Amazon won a year or 2 ago, and what, Florida State did Showtime?
Yeah, it was a debacle.
Yeah, well, Michigan's season didn't go very well either when we did that. But it is going to be something to watch out for because you know Mike Leach is always a good interview. But we could use that to get into. Let's get into the NFL talk. Before we get into the preseason stuff, we have to talk about Antonio Brown. I hate bringing him up, but we talked about his issues that he was having. I think it was last week. And the very next day, he put out, Matt was talking about his feet. I think we did that on the air. And
yeah, you were talking trash, like knucklehead.
Yeah, you know what he did? Frostbite.
Yeah.
What kind of idiot gets frostbite by putting his feet into a cryogenic chamber? I don't think when we did the show that was out. I believe that came out like the next day. Although I could be wrong. So if you're hearing it twice, I apologize. Because after that, he comes out, he's like, yeah, I haven't been able to walk or run a little bit over the summer because I had frostbite. Then training camp starts. Does he show up? No. So all the people that were out there saying that Ben Roethlisberger lost the locker room and all this stuff, guess how much easier it is this year for him when he doesn't have to deal with stupid stuff like this because Antonio Brown doesn't show up. Why? Because he doesn't want to wear his helmet. As a coach, Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
It's the stupidest thing in the world. The technology, he wants to wear a helmet that's outdated by 10 years. And he's trying to justify using the same helmet that he should be allowed to use it. Why not just wear a leather helmet? Why not just wear a kicker, single bar face mask?
Well, we talked about it on the show a while ago. I feel like it was at least a year ago. So we knew that the NFL was phasing out helmets. Basically what they did was they did concussion tests a year or 2 ago. It was a while ago. And they came out and said, these helmets are approved. These ones are kind of grandfathered in for a few more years. So then I would imagine Antonio Brown had one of those helmets that were up this year, 2019. So he could have continued playing with it. The NFL put it out there for legal reasons and said, hey, this helmet is a concussion risk. You should upgrade to one of these helmets. And the NFL, credit to them for getting ahead of it. They actually have helmet posters in each locker room. So if you go into the locker room, I saw a list. I'll have to see if I can find it. I don't know if ESPN put it on their story or if it was just an NFL presser that I've seen in the past. But I do know that they have a list of all the helmets and what they scored on the concussion test. So their best helmet of 2019 all the way to the very bottom. Very easy to read. And all of the ones on the poster are approved. If you have a helmet outside of that list, you can't wear it. So what does he do? Antonio Brown takes his old Steelers helmet, because the Raiders won't give him that helmet, of course, because they're not going to get into some legal battle with the NFLPA. So the Players Association would be all over that. He takes a Steelers helmet. They said that he got it painted. I doubt he did it himself, but he got it painted by a third-party shop, and they messed up the Raiders logo. Can you imagine, Matt?
You can't make this up.
So he goes out to team practice, and they realize, like, hey, wait, where'd you get that weird helmet? That doesn't look like the rest of the Raiders' helmets. I don't know what the mishap was. Was the Raider on? Did they have it on both sides? I know the Steelers only has one logo. But they catch him, and he says, you know what? If you don't let me wear this helmet, I'm retiring. The Raiders, for legal reasons, came out and said, no, you can't wear that helmet. And he disappeared for a few days. He goes on Instagram, I think it was Instagram, maybe Twitter, and he asks for people to find him a helmet from 2010, Matt. 2010. It's most likely going to be a helmet that's outlawed in the next year or two, because I'm under the assumption that they're phasing out all of the old helmets.
Well, they are, and to be honest with you, even at the high school level, your helmets are only good for so many years. So every year, like with our school, you buy so many new helmets so that whenever you go to send them back for reconditioning, just the normal wear and tear of a helmet only has a shelf life of a couple years. That then you say, all right, when you send them for reconditioning, you have a guy that comes in and goes, all right, these helmets, they're in bad shape. They're not going to pass recertification. You're going to need these ones. And it's good practice to just cycle your helmets and your shoulder pads out every so many years so that you're not having to drop $20,000, $30,000 in one swoop.
Yeah, it's almost outrageous that a player would go through all of these hoops just to use a helmet that's old. And I don't want to say that, I mean, practically all of the helmets, Tom Brady came out and he was complaining about his new helmet, how he's not used to it. But all of them are going to be similar enough that it's not going to make a big deal. No matter what the players say, it's for safety. You're going to get used to it. It's almost like a NASCAR driver driving a car. They give him one that's a little bit faster. He says, you know what? Nah, give me that one from 10 years ago. Could you imagine?
Well, no, but here's the other part to it. The guaranteed money that he's going to make from the Raiders this year is what, $30 million, $40 million? I think it's 30.
It's something
but
high.
It's like, take that $30 million that you're guaranteed and give it to Rydell or Shutt or whoever. If it's Shutt that he had the helmet that he liked, pay him. Say, hey, I want a custom helmet, make it good for this year, and it'll last him the rest of his career. That he can wear this special customized helmet with all the padding and all the whatever, and he would never have to worry about it again.
That's a good point. He could get a customized version of whatever their latest technology is. Like, I don't know what he would be complaining about. Maybe the cut on the front? Maybe there's a little bit less visibility. I have no idea. I would assume the new helmets are lighter because they're not carrying around those heavy cement helmets that they used to wear. That your neck just gained 10 pounds of muscle after 1 hour of practice. There's no way that's what they're rolling out there. So I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense that any Steeler fan would be missing him at the start of preseason, because it was first the feet, then this week it was the helmet. He put out there today, or I guess 7 hours ago, according to the news, that he possibly found the helmet that he was looking for. Like, okay, great. John Gruden's, he's excited to see him in camp. And it just makes me think, why? Gruden, I was so high on you last year. You let me down. You eliminated the Steelers from the playoffs. You only won a couple of games. Now you have Antonio Brown come in. You said you were happy that he's coming to camp, and he's already going to start week 1. You haven't even seen him play. For all we know, he might not even be in shape. We don't know. But he's going to be out there for Gruden. So, I mean, I don't see how Gruden is going to have success if he's having players walk all over him this early in his tenure. Sure, the Raiders signed on for 10 years, but That's not good. As much as I make fun of Andy Reid, you never hear of players pulling this on Andy Reid or Bill Belichick or anyone else that's been highly successful for a long period of time. You just don't hear it. I mean, credit to Mike Tomlin. I've wanted him gone based on the last couple seasons, and he got rid of those locker room cancers, whether it was a front office push out, not offering the money, or what. But him and Bell are both gone, so we'll see how the season goes. Looking at preseason week 1, did you get to watch any of the game, Matt? I know you had camp and stuff.
Well, thankfully, I was able to go back and rewatch the game the following day on NFL Network. But I was pleased with the connection that Washington had with Rudolph. I thought that when they made those draft picks, I was happy with keeping those two together for as many passes as they've thrown at Oklahoma State together. I thought you really saw that connection on the field, which was good. And I thought your boy Bush played well.
Yeah, Bush, I will say that he played well. He had the stats. He was a tad bit behind, and probably that was because it was his first preseason game. If you watched, because I focused in on him basically for the first couple series because I wanted to kind of see what kind of reads he was getting. He was late on a few tackles. There were a couple times where the lineman blocked him out, which we talked about was an issue with him at Michigan, taking a step too far inside, and he easily gets shut off the lane. And credit to Tampa Bay, they were running the ball pretty well. So they knew his tendency, and they were able to attack it early. But credit to Bush, he made a ton of tackles because he was in position. Now, because maybe the ball carrier was a little bit downfield, they didn't look as good, but he made an impact. And frankly, the defense didn't do too bad. Yes, you can give up a ton of runs, but as long as you're keeping them out of the end zone, especially this early in the season, it doesn't matter. So I want to see him grow into that second step. Like you said, Matt, Mason Rudolph, I was very impressed with him. I thought that he did a great job taking his time, looking for options, waiting to see what opens up. I'll tell you who else I was surprised by. Zach Gentry caught a touchdown pass, another Michigan guy that the Steelers drafted. And his tight end, he's a gigantic target. He was originally a quarterback when he came out of high school. He came in, battled for the position when Harbaugh first got to Michigan, and he switched him to tight end. They toyed with him kind of as like an open downfield tight end catching passes because his blocking wasn't developed. And he's a gigantic target. If the Steelers could get him developed, that would be a great safety valve to have just whenever they do their two tight end sets or whatever. So I was glad that he was able to get open. It was a late breaking play in the end zone where he made a read, knew the quarterback was in trouble, and he got to an open spot and caught a touchdown. And that was some of the stuff that I think he was missing at Michigan last year, where there were times where, hey, you have a chance to make an impact, and he would disappear. If he can get his feet moving, that's what the Steelers need from their tight ends and wide receivers, especially whenever they make that transition from Ben into the next spot. And hell, even whenever Ben's in there, Ben knows how to extend the play, so you need your receivers to be able to get open. And I liked seeing Washington. He was able to get open, even for Dobbs. Dobbs, I was kind of disappointed in. They kept showing the one highlight where he threw deep. I think it was Washington that made the catch. I could be wrong on that. But he underthrew him. If he let him, that could have been a touchdown from the own end zone. And there were a couple other plays where I remember that he made a good running read to get down into scoring position the one drive. But before that, there were a couple other guys that were open, and he's just missing them late. And I think at this point in his career, I don't want to bring up...
Better go fly a plane.
Yeah, I don't want to bring up Landry Jones, but it was almost to that level where, hey, sure, right now you're acting like you're a possession quarterback almost, where you're just holding on, you're driving the team down. But if you're looking to make that jump as a starter, you need to do something more. You need to be able to make these reads and hit the guys open. And I didn't see that. I thought Rudolph looked like he was able to make better plays, and I think the scoreboard would reflect that. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the Steelers. Do you have anything else?
No, I think you hit it spot
on. That's a couple things I'm going to be looking for next week when they play. I'm going to look at the defense again. How's Devin Bush doing? Is he going to be able to fill that gap and start to close a little bit faster? I would like him. A lot of his hits came 2 yards down the field already, 2-3 yards, and you can't have that. He needs to meet them at the hole. And I think once he starts making those reads, things are going to open up for the Steelers' defense. I want to see a little bit more creativity on offense, get some things open, and I definitely want to see Dobbs, if he's a starting quarterback again next week, and maybe Ben comes in for a series or two, I want to see Dobbs make some plays and actually take control of the offense, because I don't think he did that. The rest of the preseason, there were, it's kind of at the point where I tried to watch a couple games, but you're not seeing any starters in the games. I did see the rookie from the Giants a little bit, and I thought he looked surprisingly well. He looked more comfortable than Dobbs did.
Oh, absolutely.
Which made me jealous because, he's been in camp for only a couple months? And they have that. I know he was a high draft pick, but it was one that was pretty much panned by everyone. Why? I know I was down on it. Why would you trade up? And then you come out and say that the starting quarterback job is Eli's, and you're not even having a competition. So kudos to him for coming out and getting stuff done. Putting your name out there, because I know other people were talking about him too. I was at the bar yesterday, and I saw that the ESPN had a segment on him. So I thought, okay, it wasn't just me that noticed he had a good stat line and made some great plays. Other people are going to start to take notice and go from there. The Browns, I've been keeping an eye on them just because of the Steeler connection, and I think that could develop into a good rivalry. But they have a lot of talent. It's not there yet. I'm not too nervous about playing them. On the other hand, New England laid the smack down. So it's looking like another year where their team is going to be well-rounded. I know it was only 1 week, but when you have depth in the NFL and you have Tom Brady, it's a good combination to go forward. You have any other thoughts on the NFL from what you've seen?
No, I actually thought that the games were a lot cleaner than what we'd discussed in the past. It wasn't quite AAF-esque.
You mean me making fun of the Hall of Fame game? Maybe it was just two bad teams. We don't know. Only 1 week, so maybe that is what we suffered through last week. But you're right. Go ahead. I'll give you credit. There wasn't as many mistakes that stood out to me this week.
Yeah, I thought there weren't as many mistakes, and I thought that the games, just in general, there was some good stuff to watch. I liked the punt return by Cleveland's punt return guy, who went from like sleeping on the streets and conning his way into a training camp invite to scoring a touchdown. I thought that was a pretty cool story.
They have talent, the Browns. I just don't know if it's almost like they're like the crazy fraternity is how I view them. Where like they have a bunch of bros and you're looking at their party from the outside and you're like, damn, I'm kind of jealous. It looks like, look at all that hype over there. But then you actually get to go one time and you're like, what the hell is this? A bunch of guys just hanging out? And it's all dud. That's what I feel like. I feel like they're getting so much hype that when the season actually rolls around, it's going to be another disappointment. So I heard a take, I forget, it was on sports radio. I listened to a mismatch to try to get some other opinions from outside of Pittsburgh land. And someone said that when the highlight for the Browns over the past decade was Peyton Hillis, which was like a glorified fullback, that's not a good sign that your team is going to be successful. Like you don't have that level of success that you can rope these young guys in and say, look what we built here.
Yep.
And so I thought that was a great take, and I hate the fact that I can't remember who said that to give them credit, but I never thought of it that way. My frat comparison's pretty similar, though, Like you come into it, it's almost like a brand new house. You don't know what to expect, but there's a bunch of guys and a lot of energy, and you got to see what they make of it. Is it just going to be one crazy atmosphere that just dies? We'll see. We will see. Let's get into college football. I put one big topic on here because last week I wanted to talk about it, and I'm glad we waited because not all of the facts were out, so I want to actually bring up the story. But Georgia Southern's quarterback gets arrested. Now, they said, let's see, the original, that he was speeding 80 miles an hour. And speeding 80 miles an hour, cop comes up behind him. Apparently, it was a dark road from his testimony, and I hope I'm saying his name right. Is it Shea Wertz, Matt?
Yes, I think.
So he's driving, and he sees a cop behind him, so he waits. He doesn't pull over right away, but I guess because of the speed, it kind of spooked the cops. So I'm trying to look at it from both sides here when I tell the story, because I don't know, I don't think anyone was in the wrong, but if they did clock him at 80, yeah, I could see why they thought it was possibly a police chase when he doesn't immediately pull over. He said that he wanted to get to a clear, lighted area because he wasn't sure. It's dark. You can't tell if it's at night. You can't tell that it's an actual police car behind you or just some crazy guy with lights on his truck. You don't know. I mean, I would have done the same thing. Go to a lighted area. They always tell you that. And they also tell you if you're driving that if you have the hands-free headset, call 911 and tell them where you are and that there's a cop behind you, and you can verify that it's actually police. But obviously you don't, if you're speeding and you're all nervous, you definitely don't want to pull out your cell phone and start talking on your phone. It's a bad look. Only do that if you have a hands-free device. Matt, that's what they tell you to do, and I just think, like, what if you're alone? They're not going to think that you're calling for help. They're not going to know what the hell's going on if you're driving 80 miles an hour and you pull out your phone and you're talking to someone while they're behind you. So maybe if you have someone else in the car, I would assume he's alone. So they stop him. And they said they found some mysterious white substance on his hood. Now, they said that it looked like it had been washed off with his windshield wipers and possibly the windshield wiper fluid. He said that it was kind of wet and he had used the windshield wipers to clear off his hood, and he thought that it was bird poop. The cops went out
on the front of your car. That's where you keep your cocaine.
Yeah, so that's what happened next. The cops said, no, we think that's cocaine. They did a field test. They said it came back as cocaine. So they arrest him. And he's adamantly stating, no, that's not cocaine. It's bird poop. Bird poop, definitely go ahead. And I hope I'm doing this story justice. So they arrest him. It comes out the next day that they want to get it further tested. Obviously, I hope he lawyered up. I don't know. They weren't really clear if he lawyered up or not. But it comes back. They get it tested. And I'm
Pro
trying
move.
to see.
Always lawyer up.
Yeah, definitely.
Always lawyer up.
Always lawyer up. Know your rights, too. Like I said, know that you don't have to pull over right away. Get somewhere safe first. It was updated on the 9th, so this happened last week. They dropped the case because when they actually tested the substance, it was bird poop. So I actually saw a bit of investigative journalism by, I think it was one of the posts, Huffington Post, Washington Post, where they said they had a list. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll share it on the Southbound Sports Twitter, where they've been keeping track of all kind of random substances that police have filed as cocaine. Like that they've said tested positive for cocaine in the field and then arrested someone. And then when the lab results came back, bird poop, random food toppings, other animal droppings, things like that. It was like the craziest list. And so it comes back and I'll read the actual statement. Tests were conducted on the substance collected from the hood of Wert's 2016 Dodge Charger. Results confirmed that no controlled substance was present in the samples. and the chief said he hasn't seen the results himself, blah, 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 blah. Of course he's going to say that. On July 31st, so this is what, 9 days later? August 8th, 8 days later. So on the end of the month, he gets pulled over. They said that 2 different officers tested the substance on the field, and both of them tested positive using 2 different kits in 2 different spots of the hood. But because they couldn't prove it in the actual lab, that no charges would be filed. So as a coach, I would assume they have to take him back. I mean, he missed a full week? I don't think... Could they have had him arrested that entire time? The story never actually said what happened to him. Did they let him out on bail? I have no idea.
I would think that they probably let him go while the investigation was going on, and you just kind of treat it like, well, he's on the team until the police final result comes out.
It's crazy. That could be the craziest college football story of the year.
Well, I mean, realistically, where would you keep your cocaine? You'd keep it on the hood of your car so you can get to it quick.
Well, I would assume that they thought... See, that's what doesn't make sense either, because if they pulled him over and they were following him and they thought he was speeding away and he was going 80 miles an hour, there is zero way, no matter how strong his quarterbacking arm is, that he put his window down and threw a powdery substance in front of the car so far that it landed on the windshield, Matt. That doesn't make any sense at all. And they would have had to see him, if he stopped, throw something on the hood. Maybe they did, but I would assume, again, that he didn't get out of the car right away, unless they had him get out of the car and put his hands on the hood and they thought that it was in his hand. I wish they would have released, and I couldn't find it. I looked to see if they had an officer cam, like a dash cam, because I want to see what made them think to test the hood of the car. Because did he put his hands on the hood of the car? Did they have him get out so they could search him? Did he... I mean, the easiest thing to do would be, if, I don't know, you throw it out the window? I have no idea. I have no idea how they thought that he had it and he was trying to wash it away with his
windshield washer. Just hoping for a big drug bust.
Could be. I have no idea, but it's a crazy story, and I wanted to use that to definitely break into our college football talk. But anything else you got on that?
No, not on that story. I'm just glad that he got cleared for, I guess, pro move, keep your car clean. Don't have bird shit on it so you don't get pulled over and think you're using cocaine.
Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, don't drive like a crazy man first off, because who knows what the mind state was. And number 2, they always tell you, why are you out? I don't know what time it was, but why are you out super late when it's dark and you're speeding around? What are you doing? If you're driving at night, drive safely. There are all kind of idiots that are out on the road. They don't need you ripping 80 miles an hour down the road. That's my other pro tip. So let's get into college football talk. Preseason polls are out. I've looked at them. The big one that I wanted to talk about was, if you're watching the video, I have CBS Sports. They put up a map of what you think the best team is, or what they thought the best team was in each state. And the reason I put it on here was because a couple of the ACC states, they don't have good looks. But we'll get into that in a second. The big polls came out, and you had the typical teams on top. And before we get into any talk, Matt, we haven't done the Southbound Sports poll. Usually we get a couple of the Southbound Sports guys together to put our numbers, behind the scenes guys, to try to come up with our college football playoff teams. But the media seems to think that we're going to get the same couple of teams once again. And what are your thoughts on that? And do you think that is going to ruin the playoff for everybody? You're seeing Alabama mentioned. You're seeing Clemson mentioned. You're seeing Georgia mentioned. And you're seeing Ohio State mentioned, Oklahoma. It's the same handful of teams every year. Does that diminish the playoffs for you?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're looking at a bunch of 1 or 2 loss teams and you're dealing with the same crap that we did last year, where Georgia's boohooing saying, "Oh, they don't want to deal with us in a playoff." Well, that is going to get old. But if you have teams that are legitimately winning their conference, then I don't have a problem with it. I just hate where you're gonna try to find ways to justify two SEC schools, and outside of Alabama, who's really been holding water in the SEC? I don't know of any team that consistently has pulled their weight other than Alabama. You have little flare-ups here and there with LSU occasionally, Georgia occasionally, Georgeville occasionally.
Georgeville?
Nothing. Georgeville.
You know how they had their success. Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier, another legend. But they don't have those guys anymore, Matt.
But they're in the SEC, so they get a bump.
And
it doesn't matter. Get 5, 6, 7 players arrested on your team. It's all right. You're in the SEC, so you get a bump.
Well, you want to hear some bullshit though? I actually forgot. People always talk about make fun of Michigan because they haven't won a national championship since 1997. Georgia hasn't won one since pre-Penn State. It's been forever that they're getting all this hype. Georgia Tech has won a more recent national championship. Was it Washington? I know Colorado has won a more recent national championship than Georgia. If anyone's a pretender on this list being mentioned every preseason, it's Georgia. At some point, people can laugh and say, oh, look at Notre Dame. They're always going to be there. They're always going to lose. Look at Michigan. They've only had that one national championship recently. Georgia, what have you done? How do they get any credit? I'll never understand. They get in the pool game. Remember, they got crushed by Texas, the same team that lost to Maryland?
Yeah.
Why?
Bad.
Yeah, so why are they getting the hype to be mentioned in all these polls? And possibly, I mean, some of the ones that are coming out again, let's see who this one is the AP. Some people started to leak theirs, but you have Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, your top 5. Same exact teams that have been mentioned before. Then he has Michigan up there, which has always been up there since Harbaugh got there. LSU, Notre Dame, Texas, and Florida. Okay, that's one person. Let's see what McMurphy has. I don't think the AP one's actually out yet. Brett McMurphy has Clemson, Georgia, then Alabama, Oklahoma, and then Michigan. Then he has Ohio State, LSU, Notre Dame, Utah, and Florida. Utah's is a surprising one because I don't know if that one's going to hold up. But you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, if I'm seeing the same exact teams for how many years in a row, because when the college football playoff first started, you had Oregon in it. You had a couple other teams mixed in. Washington had their chance. Michigan State got in. But now it's kind of settled where, okay, is the ACC Clemson or bust, Matt? I don't know. Is Clemson the only hope that they have of getting in, or are they going to backfill it with Notre Dame? And Notre Dame doesn't even count as an ACC school, if we're being honest. We know it doesn't. But I'm just looking at it and thinking, what other teams have a chance to get in? Because the coaches poll is very similar. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, Florida, Notre Dame, and Texas. There's no other ACC school in the top 10. And again, Notre Dame does not count. You have to go all the way down to what, 22 with Syracuse? Hopefully I'm reading that right.
Yeah, Syracuse opens up with Liberty this year. That's not going to be an easy game for them with Hugh Freeze getting rolling down there in Lynchburg. That could be an upset week 1 for them anyhow.
Very true. You never know. I just don't know how a team like a conference like that, if Clemson stumbles, how the ACC is going to get another team that jumps up that high. Syracuse is not a sexy pick. I still think they'll do whatever they can to keep the Blue Bloods at the top. And until you expand it to include conference champions, I think 16 would be perfect. I don't like 8, and I hate 6. 6 is the dumbest idea. And people that are for that, I don't understand it. Because how are you going to pick the teams that get a bye? Is it Alabama and Clemson every year? You can't keep complaining about having the same teams in in the playoffs and then give them a bye every year. It doesn't make any sense. So the ACC one really stood out to me. Then the Big Ten, once again, you have Michigan and Ohio State at the top, and they're mixed up in a couple pools, but usually Ohio State's a point or two ahead of them. Then you have Penn State in the teens, and you're looking at Wisconsin right behind them, Iowa, Michigan State, and Northwestern snuck into the coaches pool. But they're giving more of a mix to everyone. And to be honest, I don't think any of those Western teams would ever make the playoffs. You had the chance with Wisconsin a few years ago, and they couldn't get it done. At some point, you have to win the conference, and then you're not even going to get in.
What do you think about Nebraska with Scott Frost entering year 2 of his system?
I don't think he's going to be able to get it done in year 2. I saw a bet going where you could bet if he was going to get to 500. And it had a lot of action on it. A lot of people are thinking that he's going to get a 500 record or above this year, which would mean that he would go bowling. And I don't know. The West seems so open that he could potentially win it at 5-3 or whatever. Was it 9 games this year? He could win it at 5-4. Possibly. You never know. There have been a couple years like that. Maybe they'd have to do better at what Northwestern do last year. They lost most of their non-conference games, and then they ran through the Big Ten West. It's possible. I just don't see, unlike the teams in the East where you have a clear hierarchy with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State out-recruiting everybody by a large gap. By a large gap. The Big 12 has the same issue where Texas and Oklahoma out-recruit everybody. And then when a team like Texas embarrasses themselves in the non-conference against Maryland, it brings the whole conference down. You can't battle back from that. TCU's never going to battle back from that because they don't recruit that well. And I think that's where you get the name brand bump for a lot of these schools in the pool. So I don't know. I mean, Scott Frost, fortunately for him, because he won the national championship at UCF, if his team is close, I could see them getting the bump. But if we're being realistic, Matt, they're the only team in the West that has the name brand to get them into the playoffs. Iowa and Wisconsin would be the next two. And it's going to take a perfect season. I think you would have had Iowa in the year they were undefeated if they beat Michigan State in that Big Ten championship game. But when Michigan State laid the egg, it made the rest of the Big Ten look bad. And the Big Ten hasn't recovered. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the pools? Do you think there's going to be any mix-up this year?
There's always a possibility for some mix-up. I think Oklahoma could, with Jalen Hurts quarterback, they've showed that they can go from one quarterback to the next and just recycle the next Heisman Trophy winner in there and go to the national or go to the first round of the NFL draft. So I think that they're going to be competitive with what they're doing. I think it'll be a toss-up between who wins Georgia. Alabama will be the front runner for the SEC spot. And I don't know if Alabama can continue to keep that hot streak. I think when you're looking at the two programs, Saban's still there, so there's going to be something. But I think really the team to beat right now is Dabo, and the ACC has to figure out the answer. I think you're going to see a better Virginia team this year under Bronco Mendenhall. I think you're going to see some of the other teams making some strides. Duke has to replace their quarterback. Florida State's still in the process of rebuilding their offensive line. I think you're going to see some improvements, but I'm not willing to wager myself yet that there's someone that's going to compete to knock Clemson off the throne quite yet. Did you see with Miami with Martell avoiding practice because he wasn't named the starter?
Yeah, I saw that, and I saw a couple news stories about the so-called transfer portal and how it has worked out for a couple of different teams. And I will say that it doesn't seem like there's a rhyme or reason again why people can get cleared right away. I think we had the story saved for the show here about the kid that bounced back and forth between USC and Texas. What's his name? Yeah, Brew McCoy. He was at USC, enrolled. He transferred and enrolled at Texas, then transferred back to USC, and he's eligible. And the key word is enrolled. Once you enroll, that's it. You should have to sit the entire year, that per the NCAA rules. So the fact that they gave him a wager, but not some of the other kids that are moving for health purposes or to be closer to their family in time of need, it doesn't make sense. Then you have a guy like Martell, and I'm sure Ohio State helped facilitate the process for him so that they can get Fields in. And that's a big question mark. You have an unproven head coach, and you have the backup quarterback, a highly touted one at that, but the backup quarterback at Georgia showing up on campus. They had no trouble getting approved. So is it big name guys automatically get approved, Matt?
Well, it must be, because Jordan Travis finally got his waiver approved, and he's been 6 months in the portal at Florida State. So I was thankful that we've been waiting to see what they were going to rule on that. They finally ruled that he was able to start. So we went from having no depth to getting Hornibrook and getting the other guy cleared. So that was good news for us. Yeah,
it's a crapshoot. I wouldn't be surprised if Martell transferred and was able to play this year, the way they implement that rule.
If he transfers to a JUCO, he definitely would qualify. Or if he dropped to a lower level, he would automatically be eligible to play right away. But the thing is, if you've already transferred from Ohio State to Miami and you go from Miami to somewhere else, you got to be in dire needs or dire straits to take a risk on a quarterback like that has that kind of baggage coming in.
Doesn't matter. There's going to be some team, Rutgers. Why wouldn't Rutgers take a flyer on him? Any other team that's very poor, and all you have to do is lawyer up.
Look, if you can't be the quarterback, if you can't win that job outright, then take your ball and go home.
Yeah, but that's a new coach, and he's trying to set the tone. There are some other coaches that you can find that have been there for a while and are getting desperate. What about Lovie Smith at Illinois? He's either in his retirement and not caring at all, or he's at the point where he's like, oh shit, I need to mix it up. Bringing in a high profile transfer quarterback is just the way to do it. I don't know what their quarterback situation is at Illinois. As a Big Ten guy, I know I apologize for not knowing, but what are you going to do? I would imagine, I wouldn't be shocked, I'm saying, if in 2 weeks he's on another roster that's Division I at a smaller school like Rutgers, and he's ruled eligible to play.
But I tell you what, I'm looking at it this way from a coach's perspective. How do you not see red flag, red flag, red flag? That's you win in the locker room and you win with character guys. And if you tuck tail and run at the first sign of adversity, then is that really the type of person that you want on your team? You know, I look at the Kelly Bryant situation at Clemson. He transfers out. He hits the transfer portal, quits midseason. There was a game, the Syracuse game, when Lawrence got hurt, and it's like had he have not quit and transferred and not played that year, he could have stepped back into that role, played well, and earned his spot back, created controversy. Instead, he transfers out. Clemson wins a national championship, and then he gets mad that Dabo doesn't give him his championship ring.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's going to be different in every situation. So I'm all on board with Harbaugh's thing where he wanted every kid gets one transfer. If you mess it up twice, then you're stuck. Like, then you have to put in for the waiver and get approved. And I think there should be a wait period. I think that would get rid of a lot of the headaches. Where if you transfer this close to the season, like what Brew McCoy did it 6 months apart, make it like an 8-month waiting period, 9-month waiting period for the second transfer. And that way, basically, you're taking that year. Now, if you already redshirted, maybe they'll have another, like a speedier process, kind of like a quick lane, where if you've transferred and possibly, hey, even add some other incentive, like you have a certain GPA, so that they know you're not just messing around, failing out of classes, and then trying to transfer. I don't know. They could put together some type of package to make it easier and more clear. But the big thing, like you said about Alabama, number one, they don't play Georgia until the potential SEC championship game. Alabama has an easy schedule. Don't try to tell me otherwise. They get LSU at home. They play what? They play Duke. You can't honestly say that that's a tough game. No, New Mexico State at South Carolina. So they get one of the easier teams in the conference out away. Southern Miss, okay. Ole Miss, sanctions. At Texas A&M, that's going to be their first test. That's in October 12th. Then they get a nice break with Tennessee next and then Arkansas to get them ready for a home game against LSU. Then they travel to Mississippi State, which we don't know how good they're going to be. Dan Mullen's not there anymore, so don't give me that. Then they get Western Carolina before they have to travel to Auburn. So they basically get two tough away games. I would say A&M and Auburn. That's it. The rest of the games are at home, a couple cupcakes squeezed in. They get nice, easy Western Carolina, Southern Miss, New Mexico State. 3 cupcake games, and Duke. So, yeah, you're right. Most likely they are going to be in the SEC championship game. Unless Auburn runs the table and beats them, or they drop one and beat Alabama and get the tiebreaker. But I think you're looking at a place where if Alabama is in that game, they're going to be sitting right there ready to take that 4th playoff spot, Matt. You almost need them to lose to either A&M and Auburn, or Auburn, one of the two, and then lose again in the SEC championship game.
Possibly. I'm not arguing because there's definitely room for they've tried it in the past to push 2 SEC teams into the playoffs. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think the thing that helps is to have other competitive conferences. If you have a Washington that can win out, or even Washington State to make a jump and win out in the Pac-12. If you have consistently Oklahoma able to knock off Texas and can get themselves into a spot. If it's Clemson, great. If it's not, find someone else to represent from the ACC. If it's Michigan, they're due to climb out of that rut that they're in and maybe make the playoffs.
I think even with that, you're still going to have what? You have Clemson, unless they screw up royally. I mean, they've lost to Pitt and still made the playoffs, so or lost to Pitt. I think that game was at home, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was home.
So you have that game, and you still make the playoffs. There's chances to slip up. I think the big one, the key for the ACC in terms of strength of schedule is Notre Dame plays Georgia again. Notre Dame has been the sneaky team that kind of gives credibility.
And I was thinking the other way. I was thinking someone needs to just knock Notre Dame out of the picture because Notre Dame's the one that kind of can throw a wrench into it because they're sneaky in that they can creep up to a win total that would get them in there. But then they get into the playoff and they get destroyed.
But they are a big enough brand that they can keep 2 SEC teams out. Remember? Weren't they in last year?
They were in. Were they really in though? Were they there?
Matt, I don't know what their record has been in national championship games and playoff games as of late, but I would take that in a heartbeat for Michigan. You can't tell me you wouldn't have wanted Florida State to get blown out in the playoffs last year compared to what happened.
I would have taken a playoff beatdown over the heartache that I experienced.
Exactly.
They made up for that decade where we were just finishing in the top 5 every year.
Yeah, so that's another team that can make a run, and I think that takes the pressure off some of the Pac-12 stuff. But I think really it comes down to, is Ohio State going to slip up in the non-conference again because they lost to Oklahoma the one year, and that hurt them. And then when you get killed at Purdue, and they got killed at Iowa that one year, like you got to quit getting killed by lower teams in the conference. Make it competitive. A competitive loss to either of those teams, and I think Ohio State's in the playoffs. The fact that you get blown out, I think, just puts you so far behind all the other teams, especially if they're losing to each other close, and that's their only loss. It really hurts your case. So I think that would help Michigan or Ohio State. Don't have any blowout losses and lose to each other. I mean, you could potentially look at a Michigan or Ohio State team. It's not unrealistic for one of them to go 11-1 while the other one goes 12-0. And then they're on the same boat as the SEC. But we'll see. They actually have to quit slipping up. That's the big key. Michigan gets most of their key games at home. They have to travel for Wisconsin and Penn State. So their schedule's similarly easy compared like Alabama's, but they do have the extra game against Notre Dame, which puts them at 12 Power 5 matchups. And then they, for whatever reason, scheduled Army, and they took Oklahoma to overtime last year. So definitely a sneaky schedule for Michigan where they could slip up. I did talk about the CBS poll, and I wanted to come back to it. They have, Matt, the best college football team in each state. The one that caught my eye, App State in North Carolina. You have any thoughts on that?
I like App State, but I don't know that they're the best team in North Carolina. I mean, I think when you're looking at the Wolfpack, look at old Coach Dorn sneaking up on people. I think that would be a more likely showcase.
I think 100% NC State would beat App State head-to-head. And I think that's just how poorly people look at the ACC through that corridor. They also have, so what? Let me look. They have Syracuse as Kings of New York, of course. I would assume they have Boston College up there for those states. Virginia Tech and Virginia, and then they have Clemson, and I think that's it. They don't have Louisville and Kentucky. They have Kentucky over them. Let's see what else. They also have Memphis over Tennessee, which is hilarious. But in Florida, they have the Gators, Matt. You think they're the team to beat in Florida?
No, they're not the team to beat in Florida, but
is it UCF?
They are in the SEC, so I guess it just does mean a little bit more. No, I mean Florida State took a giant L last year, and they were exposed pretty bad. So I can understand why people are really hesitating. But when you look at what Kendall Browse and Randy Clements have done at places that don't have the talent or the skill talent that Florida State has, I really do think that with getting rid of Francois, having Blackman at quarterback, and having more of those weapons at their disposal, I really do think you're going to see some significant change out of Florida State, and hopefully that'll translate to some wins so that I can not want to smash my TV.
Do you think it would help Florida State if they started to give their kids nicknames like Primetime?
I don't care what they do. Just win. Just win. Do whatever you need to do to win.
I didn't know if that would help bring their swagger back. Like Miami had the turnover chain.
Yeah, but it must have broke because there's losing quarterbacks now.
Hey, you never know. That's going to be a heated battle, Florida-Miami. I actually like that that's coming up. Is it not this coming weekend, but next weekend, right?
Yeah.
It's like earlier than every other game. So that's getting me pumped up because then we get a game to talk about. And we get to focus on two of your favorite teams, Miami and Florida, for an entire week, basically. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm cutting my jeans as we speak.
All right, got anything for the final bell?
No, just enjoying the time that we have getting ready for the season, and I'm excited to see what the rest of camp brings. I want to be able to get that film back up, start getting into the grind of being ready for some regular season action.
All right, cool. Well, good luck with that. Good luck at your scrimmage. And thanks everyone else to listening. Go to southboundsports.com. If you think that we should put up some of the Steeler coach pressers, let me know, because we do have access to the Steelers media room, so we do get some of that insider coverage if we want to put it up on the site. I've been toying around with it, so you might be able to check that out soon. but I don't know if that would be helpful or if they actually release it to the public or not. I've been trying to see. I don't think that they do, but we will see. I think they kind of let it out for other newspapers to kind of take their little clips on it. But we have access to it, so you can definitely look for that. We've been looking for some more Steelers and NFL coverage kicking in, so you can check out there if you want to support the show. We have an Amazon affiliate link that you can click on and do your regular Amazon shopping. Anything you buy will go towards helping us out. So just click on that link first. We would appreciate it. Tell your friends about the show. Go ahead, Matt.
There is our store so that you can go on there. You can get yourself a shirt, a sweatshirt. You can have it in your favorite team's colors.
Yeah, we have it customizable, so you can do the color slider. Good point. All in time for football season. Get your tailgate gear ready. So check that out, southboundsports.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.